hello to all of the Wranglers here. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of our Wranglers around the world. As Johan mentioned, I am Jackie, and I will be hosting this month's sessions for What I Wish I Knew When I Was 20. A little bit about me. I am a writer and editor on Wrangle's content team. I graduated from Yale back a couple years ago, and I am an avid runner, eater, and reader. As my second point, I decided that I'll share with you a relevant story of the day for each of these sessions, but I don't have an exciting story for you guys prepared today, but be on the lookout next week for an exciting kimchi-themed story. All right, let's jump right into it then. So, for today's agenda, this is the basic flow of how this orientation session will go, right? We'll spend the first about 20 minutes in the section looking about the book, exploring a little bit about what this book covers, why we chose this book, what this book represents to us, and any need-to-know facts about the story, right? In the next 20 or so minutes, the next section, we've selected a piece of reading, right? Chapter 1, very beginning actually, where we're going to do a little bit of reading together, get you excited about it, as well as digesting some of that key and valuable vocabulary, expressions, and whatnot that you can take down and remember, for many years to come. And then we'll do a brief section where we jump into the guided reading questions. So for the guided reading questions, our goal here is to just make sure that you have something to sort of guide you as you go through your reading on your own between this session and the next session. And then finally, in our last section, we have some reading tips, and we'll be wrapping up. So some reading tips from yours truly. Obviously, I have not been an English learner, but I have some tips that hopefully will help you to get through any difficult parts, if there are any, in your reading. We'll be moving into our About the Book now, going into a deep dive, and starting, of course, with the title. What I Wish I Knew When I Was 20, a crash course on making your place in the world. It is quite a mouthful of a title, right? Quite a lengthy one, but there is value even starting at the very title of the book, right? So let's take a look at what it means, right? To make a crash course, sorry, a making your place in the world, right? We'll start with crash course, right? Crash course, basically, think of it as sort of like a lesson, right? Course means lesson in this particular case, but crash is one that emphasizes that it is something that is very much packed with information. A lot of information crammed in sort of a crash, explosion sort of way. Very short, very succinct, and tons of the information put in a short period of time, right? Making your place, right? Making your place is one of those expressions that we use to sort of describe finding oneself in some sense, right? Creating space in a place for yourself, creating space for yourself in a room, creating space for yourself in the world, sort of figuring out where it is that you belong, right? In this book, and we'll talk about this in a little bit, this book talks about what I wish I knew when I was 20, but we'll see that the audience ends up being a lot broader than just 20-year-olds. So we'll break down the key facts about this book into some major categories, right? We have some factoids. We'll go into a little bit about the author, Tina Seelig. We'll talk a little bit about the genre of the story. The book is a little bit different than sort of your classic read with me literature text. Then we'll go into sort of the major structure and composition of how the story is broken down. And finally, we'll take a little bit of the major lessons away. Not a big spoiler, but a few of the key lessons you might learn from the story to, give you a general idea of whether you think you'd love the story or not, right? All right, so some key facts, right? Tina Seelig is the author, right? But the book itself is inspired by the author's courses that she taught at Stanford, right? So she used to be a professor at Stanford, teaching and lecturing on creativity, on innovation, and most importantly, on entrepreneurship, right? The book itself, even though it's called Crash Course, so you think it's kind of like, I don't know, a lesson, of sorts. It's less as one big lesson, but rather as a lot of mini lessons, right? Segment of very small, several lessons that you can sort of take away. But there's a big sort of theme that guides you throughout the story, which is this general idea that failure is part of this trajectory to success. and that without failure, there can be no success, right? And again, like I mentioned earlier, it's not just for people in their 20s, people in their 30s, people in their 40s, 50s, and beyond can learn something from this, right? The book is really designed to make people challenge their assumptions. The nature of the lessons are designed so that they're applicable to anyone in their life, anyone also hoping to change, to make a change in their life, to sort of make a little transition, perhaps in a different direction in life as well. So, little about the author, right? Tina Seelig, and we have a lovely picture right there from her Stanford profile, an educator, an entrepreneur, and executive director at Stanford Technology Ventures Program. Lots of E's there. But also, of course, like I mentioned, a former professor at Stanford. She's written 17 books and designed a lot of educational games, right? So she is very much into the field of education. And this particular piece, What I Wish I Knew When I Was 20, was published in 2009, so not too long ago, and it's one of the things that she's more well known for. And a little more about her sort of context. She was the recipient of the Silicon Valley Visionary Award in 2014. So, she has ample experience sort of educating and the sort of drive and entrepreneurship within that context. The book itself is distinct from the other books that maybe we will cover, or we usually cover perhaps here. A lot of literature books, are either fiction, nonfiction, but in this particular case, we're dealing with self-help books, right? Also known as self-improvement books. I'm sure you've heard of this before, but if not, it's based on this idea of self-reliance, right? Achieving your goals. And the books themselves, they are nonfiction, right? But they have acquired their own reputation over the years as being these stories that very much are more instruction manual like, right? So you can think of these self-help books rather than, as traditional literature that has plot and themes and stories. They still have themes somewhat, but self-help books read more like an instruction manual to life, right? A how-to guide, right? Very much so. And like I noted here, traditional literature, you makes use of metaphors and similes to convey their message. Self-help books very much are direct, rather than, giving you a story. The self-help book, generally just gives you the lesson, right? Here is what you need to know. Here's what you need to learn. Though in this book, we have a lot of little anecdotes as well, which I think you'll find quite engaging. A little more about the structure of the story, right? The book has 10 chapters, 10 clever chapters, cleverly titled, with several case studies in each chapter, right? The case studies all will lead into a lesson for you, right? So, for example, in the next section, we're going to be reading part of the first chapter, which is titled Buy One, Get Two Free, right? And Tina Seelig is going to cover a little bit about this concept of return on investment, right? And at the conclusion, or close to the conclusion of the chapter, that's when she shares her big takeaway. This is what you need to learn. This is the sort of idea that I'm trying to share with all of you. And she points it out very clearly. As I said earlier, unlike your traditional literature, we don't have themes in the traditional sense, but rather the lessons, right? It is a self-help story, right? So themes in literature are sort of what you take away from the story, right? You read a story about something, about an animal or something, and then you sort of realize that, oh, the point of this animal doing this is to teach us a little bit about, this thing or the other. Whereas the lessons in this book are very explicit, right? They're explicitly stated. They're, Tina Seelig says, hey, this is what you need to know. This is what you need to do. Try this, do this, stop doing this. Here are a few of the lessons that you will get from the story. I won't give you all of them, so you have, more motivation to read it, but a couple of the important lessons that are shared in this story, right? Number one, failure is valuable, right? Without some failure, we can't have great success. And that's one of the biggest themes that sort of, the biggest lessons that sort of runs throughout the story. Second point, right? Look at negotiations as something where both parties stand to win, right? Otherwise, you'll have a difficult time. Third point, learning should be the goal above all else. Tina Seelig really, she's an educator. She's a big, big, big on learning, and she emphasizes that throughout the story. 4, rules can be questioned, right? Do first, apologize later, right? This is something that you've probably heard before, right? Act now, don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness, right? And then finally, there's no clear path to success. Hindsight will always be 2020, right? Everyone has their own path in life to success, and it's always easier to see how things look from hindsight. A little bit of context, though, right? Why did we choose this story for all of you guys? We chose it for a reason. It's relevant to you all because it's useful for those who want to build their business English. A lot of very entrepreneurial jargon within the story. A lot of business English thrown in that's casually, excuse me, casually used in a lot of sort of those, spaces. As well as about allowing you to build business experience in the US as well as in English speaking countries, right? This story very much will help you to sort of build your vocabulary, build your experience, and learn all of the jargon used by native speakers in day-to-day speech. So let's go ahead and move forward now into our read and digest sneak peek, right? So here we're going to, like I said, touch on the very start, very beginning of the book. If you already have the story, you can even open up to the first page and join us here on chapter 1, buy one, get two free. We'll be taking a look at this very start, and then of course we'll explore a bit of the vocabulary, a little bit of the literary notes, and that'll help guide you through getting started with the story on your own. So hopefully you guys like this. All right, so if you have your book, open up with me. If not, just join ahead on the text. Here, what would you do to earn money if all you had was $5 and 2 hours? This is the assignment I gave students in one of my classes at Stanford University. Each of 14 teams received an envelope with $5 of seed funding and was told they could spend as much time as they wanted planning. However, once they cracked open the envelope, they had 2 hours to generate as much money as possible. They were They were encouraged to be entrepreneurial by identifying opportunities, challenging assumptions, leveraging the limited resources they had, and by being creative. But most of my students eventually found a way to move far beyond the standard responses. They took seriously the challenge to question traditional assumptions, exposing a wealth of possibilities in order to create as much value as possible. By unearthing these problems and then working to solve them, the winning teams brought in over $600, and the average return on the $5 investment was 4,000%. The exercises described above highlight several counterintuitive points. First, opportunities are abundant. At any place and time, you can look around and identify problems that need solving. Second, regardless of the size of the problem, there are usually creative ways to use the resources already at your disposal to solve them. This is actually the definition many of my colleagues use for entrepreneurship. An entrepreneur is someone who is always on the lookout for problems that can be turned into opportunities and find creative ways to leverage limited resources to reach their goals. Third, we so often frame problems too tightly. When given a simple challenge such as earning money in 2 hours, most people quickly jump to standard responses. Taking off the blinders opens up a world of possibilities. Students who have participated in these projects took this lesson to heart. And I just remembered, for those of you joining on books, we did cut out a few sections and skip a little bit throughout that chapter, so maybe you couldn't actually follow perfectly, but I apologize for that. But hopefully that was a little bit of a concise version of chapter 1, covering a little bit of what chapter 1 is going to cover a little more deeply for you guys. So let's jump in a little bit to some of her literary expressions, vocab, and business terms you can take away, right? We start with her opening. It's a rhetorical question, right? Hopefully got you excited. It's usually just for dramatic effect. Usually they're like, what would you do if you were a spider? But this one, Tina actually takes us a step further and answers it. She is looking for answers from the reader, right? About given $5 and 2 hours, what would you do, right? Uh, and in this case, we have this particular vocab word, seed funding, right? In case you're not familiar with it, this is when you have money used to begin developing for a project or a business, right? Easiest way to think about it is, what is a seed, right? A seed is like, one of those little seeds in watermelons, right? It's the beginning life cycle of a plant, right? So you plant seeds and you want them to grow into their trees, into the plants, into their beautiful money making machines. Next up, Tina talks about leveraging limited resources. And like we mentioned earlier, right, a lot of business jargon in this book, right? Even in that sentence, if you can kind of see, right? Identifying opportunities, challenging assumptions, leveraging resources. These are all the sorts of, little bits of business slang you'll run into when you are working in English speaking corporate environments, as well as when, others are speaking to you, right? So what does it mean to leverage something? Leveraging means using something to your advantage, right? Taking advantage of something that is there for you. In this case, leverage, kind of sounds like a lever, right? So if you think of a lever as something that goes like this, you're trying to leverage your resources, use something to your advantage. In this case, Tina says your resources are limited, so you want to leverage them to the best of your ability. Your money is limited, so you want to use it wisely. Next up, we have question traditional assumptions, right? They took seriously the challenge to question traditional assumptions, exposing a wealth of possibilities to create as much value as possible, right? So what does it mean to question traditional assumptions, right? I mentioned earlier on that this is one of the big themes that you'll run into again and again, and Tina will keep pushing this, right? It means questioning dogma, right? It means breaking norms, right? We have a lot of assumptions. When you enter a space, when you start doing something, you assume there are certain rules, right? And of course, in society, we have a lot of social norms. Those are the assumptions we operate on a day-to-day basis, right? But Tina is asking you in the course of, this experiment to question some of the assumptions that you have about your world and your life, right? So dogma, in case you don't know, dogma refers to a lot of the sort of expectations as well, the assumptions that are governing, the rules that are governing your life, right? So questioning that means, do I have to do this? Should I do this? Do I necessarily have to? And then breaking norms, of course, means just not following the norms, breaking new rules, so on and so forth. In the next sentence here, Tina uses this phrase, right? Exposing a wealth of possibilities to create as much value as possible. Again, like I said, like we mentioned, tons and tons of business lingo, even just crammed in this little little segment of a sentence. Expose a wealth of possibilities to create as much value as possible, right? In the business world, we are always talking about creating value, maximizing value, right? Wealth, you might have heard before, refer to money. Someone who is wealthy has a lot of cash, right? Someone who is, but in this case, we're using wealth also in a positive sense, right? But not specifically for money. We are using it to mean many. We're using it to mean multiple. We are making it, we are using it to mean several of, right? So in this case, an example, right? She had a wealth of talents, including singing, dancing, and painting, right? Another example might be, I have a wealth of resources available to help you with your math homework. If I have a bunch of math textbooks, I might say I have a wealth of resources available for you. Another phrase might be, there were a wealth of, I would say something like, okay, I have a wealth of, let's say, books, right? I have a wealth of books because I am very into literature, right? Describing a variety, multitude of books at my disposal. Next up, in this next sentence, by unearthing these problems and then working to solve them, the winning teams brought in over $600 with an average return on investment of, investment of 4,000%. So unearth, very literal, right? If something is in the ground, you can say, I dug it up, I unburied it, or I unearthed it, right? In this case, right, because these things all mean the same thing, you can substitute unearth there with discover, dig up, anything like that, right? So to unearth means to discover something hidden, lost, or kept secret by investigation. So an example, after years of research, the detective finally unearthed the long lost documents that would solve the mysterious case, right? Let's see. You can use it. The thing about unearthed, I think that's unique though, from something just like discover, is discovering is, well, I guess no, unearthed and unbury, right? Unbury often is a little more literal, right? Oh, I buried, I don't know, something, a suitcase in the ground, and then I unburied it, today. Whereas unearthed tends to be a little more metaphorical in nature, right? It talks more about not literally unburying something, but rather more often used. You can still use it for that, but it's more often used in Tina's case, right? By unearthing these problems, right? Or I unearthed some of Michelle's secrets the other day, right? I discovered more so than sort of literally digging in the ground. Next up, a little bit about the structure of the story itself, right? I know we covered a lot of vocabulary just then, so a little bit about the structure. And I don't know if you noticed this when we were sort of having this conversation, having this reading, right? But we have this classic first, second, and third sort of structure following the main idea, right? And the goal of this is to sort of communicate the author's insight, right? To sort of very clearly articulate what the author is trying to say. Remember earlier how we said self-help books are a lot like instruction manuals in a sense? They're there to sort of like, guide you through life in the way instruction manuals, like first open up your thing, open up your phone, second download a new app, whatever. This structure is very much straightforward and to the point, but it is unique more so to the self-help kind of genre of stories that we are reading here. All right, continuing in our little vocab journey here, we have counterintuitive. This is a really, really useful word, I would say, business or otherwise, that you should probably add to your repertoire. Counterintuitive. Intuitive, if something is intuitive, that means it makes sense, right? It's like, let's see, what's intuitive? Maybe opening a door, some might say is intuitive, you turn the knob, and push the door. What else is intuitive? Intuitive means obvious. It makes sense. It's very sensical, right? Tapping your card to pay when you get on the bus and then tapping again when you get off seems pretty intuitive, right? Counterintuitive then means it's not intuitive, right? It runs against what you would think, it runs against what seems to make natural sense, but it's still nevertheless true, right? So in this case, Tina talks about exercises highlighting several counterintuitive points, right? That opportunities are all around you. Why is that counterintuitive? Because maybe you don't think opportunities are actually everywhere. They're limited. You have to look for them. No, she says opportunities are actually abundant, right? So using counterintuitive in an expression, generally, I would say can be very helpful to convey a lot of these sentiments. So. Okay. let's see here. All right, next up we have at your disposal. Another really useful vocabulary phrase, right? She says, regardless of the size of the problem, there are usually creative ways to use the resources already at your disposal to solve them. What does it mean to have something at your disposal? It means, interestingly enough, right, that something is very available, right? Disposal usually means like getting rid of something, to throw something away, right? Toss something into the garbage. In this case, you know, it's not exactly that, so I don't know if that will help you remember it. But specifically, an example might be the resources provided by the organization were at her disposal, allowing her to complete the project efficiently. I have a lot of tools at my disposal to help you guys learn English. I have a wealth of resources at my disposal to help you guys develop your vocabulary. Things like that, at one's disposal. All right. And then next up, we have an entrepreneur is someone who is always on the lookout for problems that can be turned into opportunities, right? So if you are on the lookout for something, you are actively seeking out, watching for something, right? And you can kind of imagine it, right? On the lookout. So the hikers were on the lookout for wildlife as they explored the dense forest, hoping to catch a glimpse of some hard to see animals, right? I was on the lookout all yesterday for the UPS truck because I could not wait to receive my delivery in the mail. Do you guys ever get that feeling when you have a package coming and you're like waiting for the package? You're like, I can't wait for my package to come in, right? On the lookout. On the lookout, though, can also mean sort of searching more actively, right? So in this case, Tina says entrepreneur is someone who is on the lookout for problems, right? Maybe kind of searching for problems as well, rather than just watching. It's a little more active as well. So, okay. And then we have take off the blinders. This is an interesting one. This is not your typical vocabulary phrase in the sense that, you know, like I said, on the lookout, you're going to use, right? It's like, oh, I'm on the lookout. I'll keep an eye out. I'll stay on the lookout for this thing. You'll use that, you know, a lot. You'll use a lot of these other ones a lot. Take off the blinders is, what would I say? It's clear. The meaning is something that you can understand, but it's not something that's as frequently used in day-to-day vocabulary, right? Nevertheless, it's good to know. What does it mean? Pushing the boundaries, right? To question, again, the norms, right? So blinders are something that doesn't give you full view of something. So I think of them like as something that sort of sit like this. I think blinders actually are a sort of glasses or something like that. I'm not really 100% sorry, but I think of them as something that sort of covers the ends of your eyes and you kind of can't see the peripherals, right? The sides of what you're trying to look for, right? So they're saying, take them off, right? Tina is saying, take them off, and taking them off will open the world of possibilities, right? It will allow you to see what things are going on, right? And so this is specifically used to sort of, you know, push someone to question things, or push someone to sort of expand their horizons, right? So someone might say, hey, take off the blinders and you'll realize that there's other approaches to this project. There are other things that you can do with this project. Oh, someone says beyond the frame. Yeah, it's kind of similar. Break out of the shell, beyond the frame, both really, really good. Yeah, looking beyond the frame of something or breaking out of the shell, breaking out of your shell is another great way for expressing taking off the blinders. Awesome submissions there, guys. Okay, last but not least, take something to heart, right? So Tina says students who participated in these projects took this lesson to heart, right? What does it mean to take something to heart? I learned a valuable lesson and I took it to heart. Usually we use take something to heart with lessons, right? It is to take something serious, to deeply believe in something, to wholly commit it to it at heart, right? You could say something like, oh, I was talking to my friend about breaking up with her boyfriend, but she didn't take what I said to heart. She wasn't really listening to me, right? Because she, loves him very much and doesn't want to break up, right? So taking something to heart is about whether someone takes it very seriously, whether someone believes it wholly, or is sort of truly engaging with it, right? Whether someone is truly sort of feeling it in their heart. So that is how to take something to heart. And then now, for about 5 quick minutes, we're going to move into the guided reading questions part of our text, right? So this is what I want you guys to do for next steps. Guided reading questions are the questions I want you to think about while you're reading the first part of the story, right? While you're reading the assigned part of the story. So before next week's sessions, here are the instructions. 1, read your assigned portion for the week. You can read it, you can listen to it on the audiobook, but while you're reading it, please reflect on these guided questions, right? Take a moment to think about these questions, and then finally, if you have fun thoughts, share them with me through the band community, right? So the guided questions are as follows, right? Number 1, how do you try to challenge yourself every single day, right? Tina talks a lot about making yourself, making the most of a challenge, making, sort of giving yourself little challenges to get through the day, right? How do you do that? How do you challenge yourself every single day? Think about that as you read the first few chapters, right? 2, Tina says that, problems are opportunities, right? So what problems in your life should you see not as a problem, but as an opportunity, right? And then number 3, what's the worst business idea you've come up with, or you can come up with, right? And what seeds of potential does it have? Tina talks about every idea, even the worst ideas, having seeds of potential, right? Having opportunities to be something more, have opportunities to be something brilliant, right? What terrible ideas can you turn into brilliant ones? Okay. That leads us right into the final session, reading tips and wrapping up. For those of you who are perhaps intimidated by the story, for those of you who think, oh, this book is so hard, there's so much vocabulary, I'll give you some reading tips. For those of you who are like, this book is too easy, I don't want to read it, it's so easy, it'll be a waste of my time, I also want to give you some reading tips here. So follow along with me here. For those of you who are concerned about vocabulary, who found a lot of that stuff really tricky, I want to take you through this approach to dealing with difficult vocabulary, right? If you run into a word that you don't know, I would say avoid going straight to the dictionary. I know you've probably heard this before, but I want to emphasize it again. Don't go straight to a dictionary. Like, what does this word mean? No. Dictionaries are your friend, but please let them be a last resort, right? So here are my steps to dealing with it, right? Number 1, guess, right? Number 2, use your context clues and then guess again. And then number 3, excuse me, ignore that word and see if you can still understand the passage. And then finally, if you still can't understand it, then you can define the word. So as an example, we have a sample word. So let's try it together with this word here. Melange, right? Melange. I don't know if you guys already know what melange means. So if you do, then, that's great. Awesome. Your vocabulary is better than mine, maybe. So we have two sentences here, right? Usually you only have one, but I'm cheating here and giving you 2. The melange of fruits and vegetables was a reassuring testament to the fact that the kitchen was well stocked. The melange of fruits and vegetables, so read it again, was a reassuring testament to the fact that the kitchen was well stocked. Okay. Next sentence. The students at Ringel's webinar represented a melange of countries from across the world. The students at Ringel's webinar represented a melange of countries from across the world. What do you think the word melange means? Write it down. If you think you have an idea, guess. Type it in the chat. Tell me what you think melange means. Let's see. Look at that. We got mix, smell, mix, variation, balance. Look at that. Look at you. All brilliant, right? So again, that's what we did, right? Number 1, you guys are guessing. Variety. I see number, various, combination, right? Awesome. I mean, I'll break it to you. You guys are right? If you don't know, use your context clues, right? Is it related to food, to countries? It's not, right? Obviously not. If we ignore it, right? fruits and vegetables were a reassuring testament to the fact the kitchen was well stocked. Does that sentence still make sense? The fruits and vegetables were a testament to the fact the kitchen is well stocked? Yeah, it still makes sense. Let's remove it from the next sentence here. Students at Ringo's webinar represented countries from across the world. Does that sentence still make sense? Yeah, it does make sense. Great. Move on, right? Move on. Finally, if it still doesn't make sense, you would go to the dictionary, right? So you guys are right. Melange means a mixture or a group of a variety of different things, right? So you guys all got it, right? And anyone who said mixture, variety, diversity, combination, all of these are correct. So you got it. You didn't need a dictionary. You didn't need to, waste time using a dictionary. Awesome. All right, next slide. And some personal tips finally to wrap up from me here, right? My approach is with stories, with books in general, is I always like to give books a chance, right? Even if you don't think you'll like it. And this is for those of you who think maybe, you've already, so familiar with the vocabulary. This is so easy. It's not worth it. Even if you don't think you'll like it, I would say give yourself a little bit of time. Challenge yourself to go through 25% of that book before you say, okay, I hate it. Canceled. I don't want to read this, right? This is the true of any story, any text, right? I would say that sometimes there really is value to reading books that you don't like, even things that you hate by authors that you despise, that you disagree with, that you don't have anything in common with, right? Literature, writing allows you to experience the world from different perspectives, right? And that inherently lies value, right? More generally, though, as well, reading helps you, one, refine your writing, right? It helps you grow your writing as a person. And writing is one of the most important life skills that you can have, right? Two, it helps you to articulate the things that you dislike, right? It helps you to put to words what you don't like or what you think is kind of frustrating or hard to deal with or isn't great. And then finally, more generally, it allows you to grow as a reader and writer, right? It allows you to sort of figure out the things that you like, things that you don't like, and how to use language even more effectively. And that's the goal with any kind of text, right? Thank you everyone for joining me today. I really appreciate you all being here for this awesome session. I can't wait to see you all next week.